Anyway, here is the suspect arrested in Florida after shooting a family in North Carolina. This dude had a basketball roll into his front yard, and he executed the parents of a 6-year-old girl.
Overnight, the suspect accused of opening fire on his neighbors over a basketball in North Carolina, surrendering in Florida. 24-year-old Robert Louis Singletary allegedly shot a family after a ball several children were playing with rolled into his driveway.
I know we got a 6-year-old, but the other subject is shot. He's got a single gunshot wound.
Like an insane thing, dude. Look at it. We've got a 6-year-old down.
William White struck as he tried to deflect gunfire aimed at his 6-year-old daughter, Kinsley.
Why did you shoot my daddy and me?
White still in the hospital. It's the latest in a
Oh, he didn't kill him. Oh, my bad. I thought
string
he
of
died.
harrowing
Thank
shootings
God.
across the country, raising alarm. Seemingly everyday occurrences turning violent.
For the record, I want to point something out here. This is an everyday occurrence, 100%, and it's been an ongoing issue in the United States of America. The only difference is the media sometimes likes to start focusing on certain things that are happening every day, and that actually creates public support, and I'm glad that they're finally doing that for this. Shootings like this occur daily in this country, multiple times a fucking day. There's another aspect of this that is even larger in the iceberg. Mass shootings are only the tip of the iceberg. That's what the media fucking hyper focuses on. But what they don't realize is that there is something beyond that. There's something beyond that. If we're talking about fucking gun violence in this country, it goes far beyond just mass shootings. There is so much more. You got these kinds of fucking disputes. You got road rage incidents. And then you have a massive number of gun fatalities in the form of suicides, okay? Suicides where people use a gun.
In Texas, a cheerleading squad reeling.
I'm Peyton Washington on Woodlands Elite Generals.
18-year-old Peyton Washington in the ICU in stable condition after one of her teammates, Heather Roth, accidentally got into a car she thought was hers in an Austin area grocery store parking lot.
I just saw like a black figure in the passenger seat and I shut the door as fast as I could.
Authorities say Pedro Rodriguez fired at the girls, one bullet grazing Roth, another seriously wounding Washington. Rodriguez now in custody, charged in the shooting, awaiting a court appearance. Despite the traumatizing ordeal, the athletes preparing to compete in Orlando this weekend, Roth posting on Instagram, "It's not been easy, but we will come out the other side stronger than ever."
The suspect beat his ex nearly to death with a sledgehammer, was still allowed to be on the streets. That little girl should never been in that situation. How about why the fuck is this guy allowed to have a gun? How about that? Tampa, Florida, a North Carolina man accused of shooting and wounding a 6-year-old girl and her parents after children went to retrieve a basketball that had rolled into his yard, waived extradition during a brief court appearance Friday morning in Florida. Robert Louis Singletary, 24, was arrested in Thursday in Tampa area by the Hillsborough County deputies, according to online jail records. He wore a dark-colored protective vest during the hearing. Singletary replied, "Indeed," when a Hillsborough Circuit Judge, Catherine Catlin, asked if he would sign the waiver to allow officials to take him back to North Carolina. The judge said she would hold another detention hearing if North Carolina officials hadn't picked up Singletary by April 24th. What the fuck? Is this another one? Maine man killed his parents and their friends before firing on motorists, police say. Bowdoin, Maine, a man confessed to killing 4 people, including his parents, and then firing on motorists on a busy interstate highway just days after being released from prison. Police said Wednesday. Mike Sawchuk, commissioner of the Maine Department of Public Safety, called the shootings of 4 people at a home in Bowdoin and 3 more people on Interstate 295 to the south in Yarmouth an attack on the soul of our state that shook neighbors, law enforcement in the state at large. Is a shock to everybody, he told reporters in Augusta. You want to naturally say they can't be happening here in Maine. That can't be happening here in Maine. But the reality is these senseless acts can and do happen everywhere. The gunman, Joseph Eaton, 34, had been released April 14th in the Maine Correctional Center in Wynnum, where he was picked up by his mother after completing a sentence for aggravated assault. The crime was serious enough to prevent him from possessing a gun in Maine. Over the past decade, he has been charged with more than half a dozen crimes. The shootings began in the small town of Bowdoin, where 4 people were killed Tuesday, with 3 bodies discovered in a home and 1 in a barn. After Joseph Eaton fled the home, a chaotic scene developed on a highway over 20 miles away in Yarmouth, where shots were fired at moving vehicles. He later told the police he was firing on cars because he thought he was being followed by law enforcement. Several vehicles were hit by gunfire, but 3 people injured were a family all in the same car. And Paige Halsey, 25, is in critical condition. The 7 were the latest victims of a mass shooting in the U.S., whose targets included Christian Elementary School in Nashville, Tennessee, a bank in Louisville, Kentucky, and a Sweet 16 party in a small city in Alabama. This is an active investigation with a lot of moving parts, Shannon Moss, state police spokesperson, said Wednesday. It sucks because you see something like this, and then you think, oh, why was this man released from prison? He should have never been released from prison. You know what I mean? That's usually how people operate. They don't understand that, like, access to fucking weapons and the carceral system's, like, lack of interest in rehabilitating people and reintegrating them into society is the main components here, and that these problems will never fucking stop. Every part of this structure is just an abject failure. Every part of the system is designed to be an abject fucking failure. It's a powder keg. America is a powder keg. And the reality is, it's blowing up left and fucking right. And for some reason, people just don't recognize that. That's, instead of recognizing it, we have decided that, like, no, mass shootings and gun violence is basically like, you know, another part of our existence. It's a natural disaster. It's just like something that we cannot prevent. Over the course of this past week, we covered a story where an old white man shot and luckily didn't kill. An 85-year-old white man shot and luckily did not kill a 16-year-old black boy. We covered a story of an old white man in upstate New York shooting and killing a 20-year-old white lady for the crime, which wasn't even a crime, of like being lost in upstate New York where there's not a lot of fucking lighting in the middle of the night. We watched another story of two cheerleaders in Texas get shot by a dude, by a Latino dude in Texas for getting into his car on accident, thinking it was a fucking Uber. We watched and covered the one that we just looked at. We watched a 24-year-old black dude shoot a white family. The main component in this regard is not the additional, like when we're talking about Ralph Yarl, the 16-year-old, is not the additional compounding factors of white supremacy or anything like that. The main component to cover in this circumstance is the mass circulation and ease of access to weapons. Americans are insanely paranoid. They have a hair trigger finger and a arsenal of weapons at their disposal. Everybody's got access. Everyone's got access to guns, and they are not careful with it at all. They don't have to get the proper training for it. They don't have to implement proper safety measures at their homes, and they are very willing and able to fucking shoot. And the structure itself oftentimes also gives them a lack of accountability that is normally afforded to police, even though that should be a point of contention as well, even though it's not. It's insane. Yeah, and then the Alabama Sweet 16, where 6 kids died, 32 people were injured. Everyone's doing it. White people, black people, Mexican people, everyone's fucking doing it. A fucking trans person did a mass shooting. You know what I mean? It's just the most American thing. Seems like there are additional components that we need to be hyper focusing on, but we can't. Old Asian dudes are doing it. Everyone. Equal opportunity mass shootings, baby. Land of the free. Were goers of the NRA conference allowed to bring in their guns? Of course not. The NRA conference is a gun-free zone. Anywhere where the president is traveling is a gun-free zone. Don't be crazy now. Obviously not. Because the NRA, regardless of its lobbying efforts, perfectly understands that guns in the hands of random individuals is going to create an unsafe environment. I don't know, man. Apparently, the Louisville shooter left notes revealing part of his goal was to show how easily a mentally ill person can buy a gun, U.S. Sources say. This will be normal for a lot of people. The gunman purchased the AR-15 style rifle 7 days before the April 10th shooting under Kentucky law. He was only required to fill out a form for the U.S. Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives and undergo an FBI records check to ensure he was not a felon or the subject of a court-imposed restraining order. That's great. I'm sure that the gun nuts will absolutely love that one, where they'll be like, oh, dude, very clearly, this was a psyop, brother. It's going to make all the fucking mentally ill gun perverts lose their minds even further. The nature of the notice was first reported to the Daily Mail. Sturgeon was killed by police officers shortly after. While Connor, like many of his contemporaries, had mental health challenges, which we as a family were actively addressing, there were never any warning signs or indications he was capable of this shocking act. The shooter's brain will be examined for chronic traumatic encephalopathy, commonly known as CTE, his father told CNN. Great. Motherfucker had to wear a goddamn helmet when he was playing basketball, brother. Holy shit. The disease has a variety of symptoms. We already know that. Wilt, the injured officer, has been transferred to a new hospital where a specialist treating his pneumonia. He was listed still in critical condition. On the morning of the shooting, the gunman's mother called 911 and told the operator he was heading to the Old National Bank branch on East Main Street. He had a gun and apparently left a note found by a roommate. I'm so sorry. I'm getting details secondhand. I'm learning about it now. Oh my Lord, Sturgeon's mother said in a 911 call released by the police. I need your help. He's never hurt anyone. He's really a good kid. We don't even own guns. I don't know where he would have gotten a gun. The call was made at, yeah, exactly. We don't even own guns. I don't even know where he would have gotten a gun. Well, turns out it's super simple. 7 days before the fucking shooting, he went and got a gun. The call was made at 8:41 a.m. on April 10th, but the shooter was already inside the bank and the police officers are arriving on scene at that point. Even when the cops do the right thing, it's still not enough because it's legislators that are supposed to do the right thing, and they are not. This is another instance where cops did the absolute best possible thing that you're supposed to do. This is the one area where they are supposed to do violence, and they did the violence, and they stopped the shooting, and yet 6 people still died. Alton ultimately, because it doesn't matter, because you're supposed to cut the problem before it starts. At least 165 mass shootings have already been reported in the U.S. this year, according to data from the Gun Violence Archive, obviously.